Carla.
We do.
Hello.
We do. I was just telling Michael about you guys. Good to have you. Okay, well, why don't we get started? So the way that these calls work is we always start with some wins, celebrations, things you want to share that you've been learning, and it's just kind of open form. So you can type your name in the chat or raise your hand, and we can share from there. So who wants to start?
Wow, don't all
Yes,
answer at once.
Patricia.
I had a question that I put in for today,
Yes.
but David answered it, and I was able to review the link that he gave me, and it really, I've been working on it, and it's awesome.
Good. Okay. Good. I'm glad. I was I didn't see your question in the Facebook until after David had answered it. So it's perfect. Oh, Carla, yeah, just a sec here. Here you go. Okay, hopefully that works. It should be the same phone number every time, Carla, so you can save it. Martha, welcome. All right, who else has some celebrations, wins to share? Yes, Martha. Good.
Oh, hi. Just in general, lots of good clarity coming in. I feel like I'm a little bit out of the weeds in terms of my messaging, and that verbal business card that we worked on last week was super helpful. So appreciate that. And I have about 15 people that are that I have to shoot off my one sheet and reasons to hire documents, which should be ready very shortly. So 15 what I would call warm leads. So I'm excited about that. Yeah. So, just all those air calls that I've been making, and this just been finishing those with, is it all right if I send my one sheet and documents along and sort of a pre-formatted email that they can use for forwarding it along to colleagues and such. So I'm excited to sort of actually start that process with all the air calls.
Phenomenal.
Very awesome. Way to go, Martha.
Awesome. Who else has something they'd like to celebrate? And remember, these can be no matter how big, how small. So you could have booked a huge gig, or you could just be taking kind of the next step. So let's hear from someone else. While you guys are thinking about it, let's welcome Ari and Carla. We have them joining for the first time today. Wonderful to have you guys here. And don't be shy. You guys can participate in the first call and every call thereafter. Anyone else want to share before we get into the question queue today? Kids are really quiet.
Quiet.
Oh my God.
Today. We might have to kick some butt.
I know. What are we going to do with you guys? Usually this this part takes a long time.
We'll get them going.
Get them riled up. Okay, well, maybe Morgan, you can post the next question because Patricia's has already been answered actually in the Facebook group. But there we go. All right, Michael, you want to take it away with the first question?
Sure, Martha. I have an international coaching client who is a tech CEO in Israel. Oh, nice. A tech CEO in Israel. I'll be having an air call with him just before our SPF call tomorrow, meaning today. You have it already, or it's before Thursday?
Yeah, it was supposed to happen this morning, but he had to reschedule. So I'm actually kind of glad because now we can talk first.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, I suspect he may be able to connect with me, some international clients, what would like to flesh out international fees versus domestic. Yeah, I believe we had tackled this before. Maybe it was might have been with Lisa. Are you talking, Martha, specifically about speaking fees, international versus domestic, and or coaching, consulting, et cetera?
It would be for a training, which has been my focus so far, is really going in and giving public speaking trainings. and sort of how to. It's a morning of training, and then generally what I do in the afternoon is open it up to one-to-one coaching for their top performers and whoever needs those one-to-one coaching sessions, with the hope that there'll be a follow-up consulting gig after that. I noticed in the modules that David talks about his international fees starting at $15,000. Sort of wondering how that dovetails with the idea of, okay, if your fee is $7,000 and then you've decided it's $1,000 a day for you to travel. I remember we talked about that before. Putting a dollar amount on a travel day. So, would that be, say it takes 2 travel days to get there and back? Would it just be 9,000?
So, Stephanie, I might need your help with the reference to the $15,000, where that.
Well,
that
it's just
created.
David, one of David's, I can't remember if it's a proposal or something. He has a template that it just says, and it just is like, it's like a little footnote.
Okay, so
almost, it's not really in the lessons, I don't think, but I remember it in one of the templates as like a bit of a footnote, like.
so it's not a big training on international.
I wouldn't say
Okay.
there's a big, no.
Okay, because I don't want to miss out on what David said. So let me start you, Martha, and then let's open it up to folks who may, just so we know, does anybody here have experience with international work? Just so we know who we can count on. Okay, so we'll get Trish's input as well, if you don't mind sharing, Trish. But to start, Martha, these are some things to think about. So number one, obviously there's your current fee.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2 is the exchange rate. Now these things may or may not affect your fee, but these are things you want to consider, right? Mm-hmm. Number 3 is what companies like your potential clients or people like your potential clients are used to paying for the services that you offer in their country, right? So that's a third thing. Number 4 is what might other people be charging that are serving these clients, and those two things can often be correlated, but they might be different.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's your value and the deliverable, but I'm sure you've already thought of that with your current fee, but obviously just reflect on that some more. And then of course there's the travel part of it and the amount of time you're taking away from your current work, not just the literal travel, but the impact it has on your current business. So
Right. Because I would think if you're going to go, I'm just trying to get prepared for if he says, well, why don't you come over here? Because I've always
Right.
worked with him on Zoom, but he's, these international people don't think anything of traveling at all, so
Yep.
he might say, well, would you come to Israel?
Absolutely. I think it's very smart that you're preparing in advance. You want to be prepared.
Yeah. And I would think if you're going to go that way, you'd want at least a couple of days of training.
Yep. So naturally you're going to, I shouldn't say naturally, as you would here, you're going to take your offering and you're going to customize it or tweak it to what it is they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure that your fee is commensurate with that. And it may or may not change, other than obviously charging them for your travel and time. But you do want to make sure you're being thoughtful and looking at these parameters. So I can't give you what the fee is.
No, right.
It depends on those, but at least you're being thoughtful and putting you're having foresight into how you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, one example of this is I have a colleague who works in India with Tata, which is I think I brought this up before, one of the largest corporations in India. And he goes in and teaches stress management tools. But, they charge maybe a third of what we would charge here. So obviously I didn't look at that as a client because I thought, boy, first you got to get to India, which is 17 hours. And then they just
Yep. So that's great that you looked at that. That's example of doing your due diligence. Just don't assume because one company, don't assume because that was the way they did it with another client that that's the way they would do it with you. These are just things you want to take into account. But yeah, like if you determine that a company in India, the way they pay their trainers, their speakers, is a third lower than the way we do it in the States, and therefore you decide not to take on that business, that's a very valid reason.
Mhm.
Just don't assume because somebody else, they did it that way with somebody else, that they would do it that way with you. It can't hurt to ask and put your fees out there.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I also think, one thing that got me a little bit confused was when David said somewhere in the course that he offers some type of a discount for something that's local to the Philadelphia area where he lives. And then I think in another part he said your fee is your fee is your fee.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead, Steph.
Well, I just wanted to say a couple things. So your fee is your fee is your fee, but they're sometimes it's not, right? But also if you're, what he talks about is like, this is your fee for the day, right? You could do breakouts, you could mingle at dinner if you have to stay overnight. Like there's a lot of things that can be included in your package for that fee. It does seem to me that, let's say you had an hour-long talk in a local place, you may have some negotiation wiggle room if you wanted to. If you wanted to charge them the full fee for that full day, whether it's local or somewhere else, then totally fine. But you also could get back to your office and you could, do some more other stuff, I guess. That's probably where that's coming from. But what I wanted to say about the Israel or India or wherever it is that you're being asked to speak is we've seen this with a few people in the course, and we've heard this from David as well, where actually bringing in a speaker where they have to travel tends to command a higher fee than if you were just speaking in your backyard, because it's the perceived value of the fact that they're bringing someone in. It just is. It's a little bit odd, but it's just how it is. So you live in Philadelphia, let's say, and you want to speak, you're going to do the same talk somewhere else, but they're going to see it as more valuable because they're bringing you in and going through all that effort to have you come in and do it. And I suspect that could be the same internationally as well. If they don't have a pool of speakers locally that they on this topic, or they don't have someone they know, then it's possible they do have the budget to bring in someone internationally. I saw kind of Trish nodding her head to that too. So just some things to think about, like you just put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Trish also
Yeah,
asked
let's
in the chat
perfect.
if you have a visa. And I know Ari has also worked internationally. So if you guys have anything you want to add, go for it.
I don't have a visa to work in Israel, so I would need one. Yeah.
Trish, what else? Anything you would add, Trish, that we may have missed or?
Well, Stephanie made a good point that if they're going to bring somebody in from overseas, then I think the expectation would be that you would command a higher fee than somebody local. That's one. Another way to look at it is, obviously do your research on what are the going rates and then maybe charge just a little higher. Another way is to, there are like a billion ways to do this, but I'll just keep throwing it out there. Like when I was booked to speak in the Philippines and I have the ability to work there, what I did was I charged my normal rate, but I also booked another gig.
Right.
So, while I was there, I maximized my time.
Oh, for sure.
So,
Yeah.
Right.
Good.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And how do you
then I got two for,
right for getting yourself over there and all of that stuff? Yeah. How do you get a visa to work in another country?
Well, it has to go, you have to talk to the HR department in the company because they would be the ones who would be sponsoring you. I don't know the regulations in every single nation, but you know, I mean, there are ways around it. I don't know if you want to take it. They could pay you in dollars. You could fly over there to give the talk, get out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's ways around it, but that's up to you and how you want to do it. But
But you're right.
Just-
HR's done this before. You just
Yeah.
you let them handle it, and you put a line in your contract that they're responsible for getting you the visa, essentially.
Yeah, just do a little Google search, Martha, just so you're speaking the right language when you talk to them, right? So you've done a little bit of your homework.
Yeah, beautiful. So helpful. Thank you,
Good.
everyone. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay.
Perfect.
Next one, Morgan. Is it up?
Yeah, I'm just going
There it is.
to.
Oh, there it is.
I see it. It was from John. There it is. Okay. I rewatched the video about the 8 questions to stay focused. Well, this gives me several options to pursue. It's overwhelming. Can you help me pick 1 or 2 and explain the best ways to proceed? So I had Morgan post the link to the video so you guys can see. But if you remember that a while back, so this might predate some of your time in the program, but David actually made a video, and it was like essentially a summary of a bunch of the modules in the course of here are a bunch of ways to get clients. Essentially, if your outreach is not working, you're probably not doing these 8 things. And so definitely, if you've gone already through all the modules and you're still kind of floundering when it comes to outreach, definitely go watch that video. Excuse me. So John, there you are. Was there anything, I guess the easiest answer first is, was there anything in particular that that did resonate from you of those 8 kind of ways? Were there any that you're like, oh, that's easy, I could do that, or that sounds doable?
Well, the first thing I did was, I mean, last week I made an attempt at setting up some interviews, and it was just an attempt, and I get that. So I know there's more to do there. That feels like cold calling to me, and I'm not quite sure how to make that not cold call, because I'm still reaching out to people I don't know and they don't know me. So I don't know, Martha, you just said you do a lot of the asking for air conversations. Is that kind of I just want to pick one rather than try them all, because that won't work for me. But like, what's the best place to start? I feel like I'm a beginner, so what's the best place to start that is not going to be viewed as cold calling, or even if it is, that it's still a way to open the door? And then, so like if I picked one, which one do you suggest? Because then I can say this week, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. So really good question. So basically there's really almost nothing in the course that we want to be cold for you. So we like to think of them as door opening conversations. And so that's why the interview strategy. So when you're asking someone, hey, can I interview you for this article that I'm writing? It's cold in the sense that you've never met them. But it's very complimentary in the sense that, like, hey, I really respect you. I've looked you up. I'd really like to interview you. So that is not, I would not consider that cold, even though you might still have some insecurities about reaching out to them. It's a compliment. Like it's a little bit like you're doing them a favor, right? Like if a stranger drops $5 in the street, you pick up the $5 and you give it to them, even though you've never met before. Mm-hmm. So the strategies, same with the air conversations tend to work better when you know the person or have a connection to the person or an introduction, because then you are asking them for a favor. So Michael just typed what air conversations in the chat, but so that one's like a little colder, I guess, than the interview strategy, but we tend to use connections that you already have for those. It's that works much better.
So here's a question on that. Is it, so, I mean, can you reach out to somebody who, like, I don't know them, they're not a connection, with that same idea? Hey, I've got this new program. I am asking for your advice, insights, and recommendations. In an effort first to find out if that program, like he said, shoot holes in it, to eventually make it bulletproof. Is that a way to still open the door, even though I don't know them? Is that a good approach?
Well, I guess the answer is, again, typically you would do it with people that you've had, like asking someone for advice, typically is someone that you've had like a little layer of conversation with. It might even be just someone you're connected to on LinkedIn. There's some sort of connection there. It can be cold, but I want to go back to your bigger question. So the 8 strategies really are across the board. So there's these strategies that you just talked about. So AIR and interviews. There's the reverse prospecting, right? So going to the board members and then coming back, and that one can be a little bit colder too. But there are a couple other really, really strong ones in there too, like referrals. So going to your network and asking for introductions. Did you see that one there, for example? Does that one feel a little bit better or warmer?
I don't know that I know anybody in my network that would say, sure, I'm in healthcare, I'll make a referral for you. I don't think I know that yet. I don't think I know anybody yet that might. I'll back that up. I guess I do know a couple of people that I can approach. So asking them to make a referral about who I would contact, or is that the idea? Okay. So I've done that a little bit.
So it can be asking for an introduction in any of the strategies, right? Like, can you introduce me to someone to do an AIR conversation? Can you introduce me to someone to do an interview? Can you introduce me to someone to just like book a gig, right? It can be kind of any of those. But I want to get into so when you watch the video and there's the 8 strategies in front of you, I just want to get back to the real question. You said you felt overwhelmed by all of them. Just tell me which one to do. The thing is that they will all work for different ones of you in different ways, right? So we want to find the one that sounds, 1 or 2 or 3 that sound the most resonant to you. So I want to kind of go back to that and just remind you all, you don't have to do all 8 of the outreach prospecting strategies.
Right. I would say probably the asking for AIR, the interviews, and the reverse prospecting. Yeah. Because all of those places they're all healthcare associations. And so I was doing a little bit of searching this morning. There's a board of directors, and the ones I was looking at, there's no contact information. So I'd have to do some digging to see how to get a hold of them. Yeah. I guess those 3 probably.
Okay, perfect. So for now, just focus on those 3, or even pick one of them to start and focus on. Ignore the other ones for now. And what I want you to do is actually do the strategies, do them well. So you said the board prospecting doesn't have information. Well, it takes research. None of these strategies are quick fix. None of them are meant to be like, oh, I'm just going to bang out 30 today. The most effective strategies are going to be when you've done your research, when you really care about the prospect that you're trying to reach, that you've made a connection. It can be a longer process. So which one of those would you like to start first?
Question. Probably the reverse prospecting.
Okay.
Because like David said, that's like a 2-pronged thing. Is that with the same intention? Like, hey, I'm writing an article. Is it connected to that aspect? Like, I'm writing an article. Would you be willing to be interviewed for making a contribution to the article? Or is that something different with reverse prospecting?
That's a different strategy. That's the article writing strategy, right? Okay. So this is a good one. So let's just go through what that strategy is, the board prospecting in reverse. So the way it works is you pick an association that's really resonant. Their members are ideal clients for you, and it's, you know, it aligns with everything. You've also done some research that they pay speakers, right? So you really need to look at your competitive scan and look at other people in the industry and see, like, has this association booked other speakers, right? Or are they, and you know, speakers that you know are not just going around talking for free. So you have the first level of research where you really need to get to know the association, right? Because you don't want to go through this whole process and then find out, well, they don't pay speakers and, you know, they have no events coming up and nothing. So there's the first level of research where you're really researching that association. The second level of research is you're researching that board of directors, right? And you're not just reaching out to one member of the board of directors, you're probably reaching out to many of them, if not all of them. You've learned about them, you've learned about their involvement, and you reach out to them and you say, I'm preparing a talk for your association for this upcoming event, right? So you've done your research, you know that there's an event coming up and that you're the right kind of speaker for that event because you've done your research. And you say, okay, I'm preparing a talk. Can I run it by you? Can I ask you some questions about what your members are really looking for? We have a template in the course about what that is. It's not a downloadable template, but it's actually in the video about this strategy, the board prospecting in reverse video. Then there's a template there. So then you do that for, let's say that for, I don't know how many board members there would be. Let's say there's 4 board members. Then what happens is now you've been able to craft a really great talk because you've talked to the board members. Now you can approach the person who hires people for talks saying, I just spoke to Bob, I just spoke to Allison, I just spoke to Tim, and I just spoke to Susan, and they gave me some information, and now I have an absolutely perfect talk for your event coming up. You know, let's get on the phone and talk about it. So it's work to get it done, but if you've done all of that groundwork, you've done all of that research, you've talked to those board members, then you've now got an amazing talk to submit. So that's that strategy. What does that sound like to you, John? I just talked for a really long time.
No, that's perfect. I think if I were to pick, I'm going to start with that one. And I'll report back. So,
yeah.
But that helps a lot. So yes, I'm preparing this talk. I wonder though, I mean, is it going to fit with them? I'm preparing to talk for this conference. They're probably not the people that are selecting the person for that talk. Mm-hmm. How does that work if I'm preparing to talk for your conference, but I'm not speaking there?
Well, you are preparing a talk to submit to the conference, essentially, right? And by the time you've spoken to all of those board members, you're going to have an amazing talk for that conference. They would be dumb not to hire you. And you'll have a really strong pitch for the person who actually does hire speakers. But again, you need to do your research that it's a conference that fits for you, that they do pay speakers, and that you know that your topic is appropriate for that conference. So there's some research there. But then what happens is now you have this relationship with the board members who, even if, let's say your talk doesn't get selected, but even if that happens, now you have a relationship with these 4 board members who can think of you for future talks, who can submit your name, but also they all work at companies that then would be more than likely really aligned with your message. Make sense?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I have one more question too, related to this. Organizations that are, the request for proposals, do you recommend spending much time on those or not?
Michael, you can chime in for this one, but generally, sometimes people have luck with them if their topic is like crazy, super aligned, but but most of the strategies, like actually all of the strategies we talk about, are kind of like the workaround, because you end up, when you submit proposals for things without talking to anyone, without doing a lot of research, when you just submit the proposals, they go into a stack with all the other proposals, and it's unlikely that you'll get a really great fee for it, and it's unlikely that you'll be selected. Whereas the strategies in the course really help you build relationships, really help you kind of circumnavigate or circumvent that process, right? Like you get put on the top of the pile, essentially. That's really what we're going for with these strategies. We don't want just your name in 100 piles and then you never get selected.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good. That helps a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Is anyone else having trouble choosing strategies to go with? Just curious. I know Ari and Carla are not quite there yet, but I'm just wondering if anyone else is. It is an important question. But I think, looking at who's on the call here, I think most of you have kind of picked the lane and you're going down it. Cool. Now, we had a light question week today. I didn't check the chat if anyone has submitted questions in the meantime, but for you guys to submit questions for Thursday, the link to submit questions, spfquestion.com, spfquestion.com. And yeah, Morgan just put it in the chat. So make sure as you're, Ari and Carla, as you're going through the modules, Trish too, I know you're reasonably new back to this. As you're going through the modules, make sure to ask questions as you come across them, okay? Michael, anything you want to kind of add or share based on today? Just
to make sure, Ari, I know we answered the question about AIR in the chat box. Are you good with that? And or do you need, you'll obviously learn about it as you get through the modules, but was that appropriate? And you're on mute, just FYI, Ari.
Thanks very much for that. Appreciate it. No, I was just curious as to what it means, because I was feeling kind of stupid.
You're hearing it, right?
So, and now I know what it stands for, and I'm sure I'll find it in the module, so that's fine. All right.
Perfect.
It's just
okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure you were good.
Yeah, I'm always good.
You're always good. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, Patricia.
I just want to make a comment for Ari and Carla. The rest of us have gone through that too, where we've said, what does this stand for? Or what does that stand for? And in fact, my question for today that got answered in Facebook, I said, what does this mean? And even though I'm a few weeks in, I'm still asking those kind of questions. Yeah. The only way they get answered is by asking them. So great job asking it.
Yeah, very good. Another good, thank you, Patricia. Good reminder to post things in the Facebook group, and then the search and the Facebook group is awesome too. I think sometimes we forget about that little search function, but that works. All kinds of cool things pop up when you search, because all these things are being collected and through groups after group, people after people, and it's kind of comforting to know that there's probably not a question that you can ask that has not already been asked and answered. So I think that's a good thing to always remember. We're all in the same boat. We're all in this together.
So Patricia. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're on mute again.
Sorry, I'm not a techie. I didn't even know search existed in Facebook, and I don't know where to find it.
Well, how about I show you guys, because this is super important. And then while I am doing this, what our next kind of phase of the call is that we, anything you guys have been learning, any information you want to share with each other, any insights you've been having, we like to kind of knowledge pool. So what I will do while you guys are thinking about that, just show you, so this is the Facebook group. So you've got the link up there. And actually, if you just type in this box right here, then you can find anything. So for example, if you type AIR, there are lots and lots of questions here about AIR conversations. If you type in, well, that video is under new questions. That's the one that David just made. So new questions we're going to be asking you. You wouldn't have known to search for that, but I just have it in my head. What about like associations, right? There's lots and lots of information about different associations and things. So anyways, really, really good search function there.
Thank you.
You are welcome. That goes for every Facebook group. I have found out some really, that's very helpful in all the other Facebook groups that I'm into. So what have you guys, oh, go ahead, Patricia.
I was going to answer your other question. I've joined 2 Facebook groups that have a lot to do with my topic.
Yes.
And I've put in a comment here and there type thing. And I have gotten more loves and likes than I have on my own Facebook page. So that was, to me, is a good win because it says that I am connecting well.
Yeah, and just going outside of your own backyard too. Like sometimes we get a little bit nervous about strangers, kind of like John and cold calling, that sort of thing. But your message just might not resonate with your existing network, and that's okay. So finding places where it will is really important. Mm-hmm. What else have you guys been learning? Any ahas in the modules as you've been going through them? Any ahas in your conversations with people? Yeah, John, and then Rod.
I think that the thing that I'm learning from the modules is that the more I go through them, the more I pick up, because I've gone through them once and now I'm working my way through a second time, and I'm like, I didn't hear that the first time. That wasn't in that. I listened to that module. That wasn't in there the first time. So it's kind of like not ready to hear the information yet, or one time through or 2 times through is just not enough. So it's like, oh, that's that little nugget that I missed the last time. So it really has some value going through them again.
Yeah, David sometimes when he can't sleep at night, he goes in and adds things to them and doesn't tell you guys, so that hear him again, you wonder where was that? That's a joke, by the way. You're 100% right, and that's just another thing I'll validate. Having access to these modules for the rest of your life is so huge, because not only should you be going through these now, but I'd say once a year, just, I know we're kind of forward thinking here, but, just maybe towards the end of each year as you're planning for your new business year, go through those again and use them as kind of a business planning strategy. Just huge benefit. Because like you said, John, depending on where you're at with your business, you will hear those trainings in a completely different way. Right now, it might be a minor different way, but as your business evolves year after year, it'll mean something completely different to you.
And the other thing along with that, talking with Sarah, who's my coach, as often as possible, it says in the module, I don't know if so it really is helping to connect not just with the modules, but with someone who knows the modules. And, Stephanie, you did it too, well, module 5 has this. I'm like, yeah, but when my first glance or my first response to that was, well, it wasn't all that specific, but then I went back and looked at it again and was able, through your coaching and your eyes, see a little bit different and a little bit more specificity there. So
that's good. Thanks. I think Rod was next.
Yep.
Yes,
Then Martha.
Hi. Well, I was working with the Parks and Rec before I started this course, and I made the mistake of telling them my fee. So when the holidays rolled around and I'm at an event and I'm saying, hey, let's get together, I want to sit down with you. Oh, Rod, you're too expensive. And I was like, oh, I made a mistake and told them my fee. And then I felt bad because they told me I was too expensive. And I had to go back to the modules to pump myself up to say I'm not too expensive. So it's like I'm going to need these modules for the rest of my career just to keep me going when someone says no. But at the same time, because right now I was going back through the piece that says we must be problem solvers. And so that about 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, we were talking about the proposal to the Hillsborough County School District, which is the 7th largest school district in the nation. And so they love my proposal. I will say that. So thank you guys for that piece. I appreciate it. But because it's being approached as where I'm trying to help them solve a problem, all kinds of things are popping out of that. So they're coming up with other ideas that I didn't even put in the proposal because I didn't want to overwhelm them. I just wanted to give them a little taste. And then they're saying, oh, well, he can do this, he can do that. And so before the proposal even gets finalized, because they want me to tweak it, they're ready to buy $13,000 worth of books, of my books. So so yeah,
Awesome.
everything's going great.
Unbelievable. What a great, perfect story from you're too much to them wanting more and basically selling themselves on you. That's such a good example.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's so easy to listen to the criticism
Yep.
over the praise, right? We remember the criticism so much more often and so much more deeply than the praise. And so I don't know if I think I've told you guys, I've told groups before, but I don't know if it's your group. I keep this on my desk in my drawer, and it's it's just a notebook. And in it, I write, whenever someone sends me a nice compliment or a nice letter or something, I write it down in the book. I call it my praise journal. And it's just a way when you're feeling like garbage, or when someone says something rude to you, or you're about to, maybe nothing of that happened, but you're about to just like go in and negotiate something that's a little out of your comfort zone, or you're maybe just talking down to yourself like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get this. I like to just have a look at it and be like, oh my gosh, these are the lives I've changed. These are the clients that have paid me. These are the ones that love what I do. I got this, right? So it's like, it's kind of a primitive tool, frankly. It's not some big fancy mindset mantra, whatever, but like, it's just proof, physical proof in your hands of the great things you've done in the world, and can be really helpful to kind of try and squash those negative voices. Mm-hmm. But really good, good work, Rod. I love that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so another thing, Rod, it sounds like you went back to the modules, because there is a whole lesson called, my fee is too high, I think is what it's called, and what to say when my fee is too high. So hopefully, maybe you can even have a different conversation with them moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Martha, were you going to share something?
Yes, I just had a little aha this week. I was listening to the modules while I was on my exercise equipment. I think it was Saturday. And I just realized this little habit that I have of like saying, well, if I don't have like 2 hours to really focus on my sales process and set myself up in Pipedrive and get everything all perfect, then it's just not going to work today. Like because I always have all these other things on my calendar, people I'm already coaching, a business I'm already running. And I know this applies to probably everybody on this call. And yet I heard something on the module that David said, it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes. You have to establish this daily habit of pushing the ball down the field. And that sort of just gave me permission to just say, okay, if all I can do is get 1 email out today, I'm not going to stop the progress. I'm going to establish the habit of daily outreach. And that was huge for me, because I think I was sort of operating in more, I've got to have these big chunks of time for my outreach, and I got to do all this research, and I got to make it all perfect. Everything has to be all ready. And now I'm like, just that imperfect action, just take it, just do something. It doesn't even matter if it's really perfect. Just take action every day. And I think I finally got that. So grateful for the talk we've had around that, and it's just sinking in.
Awesome. Ari, what were you going to add something to that?
Yeah, no, it's not a question of adding, because it
Yeah.
just it sparked something when
Yeah.
somebody mentioned the CRM. I was just wondering what in general people use, what CRM they like, they don't like, what do you stay away from, what do you use, what don't you use. I know I've got e-speakers. It's not really a CRM, but it's it's a tool that I personally think it's valuable. But I'm just curious because I've used like 2, 3, or 4 different CRMs throughout the past couple of years, and you know they've all been very, very cumbersome and difficult to manage, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm just wondering, you know, what do people use out there?
Sure. Well, I'll answer this question, then we'll get to Carla's question here in a sec too. So, the if you're looking for like a software tool, then I would recommend in the Facebook group type in CRM, and you'll see a bunch of discussions about it. Generally in the course, if you're looking for like a robust tool, we recommend Pipedrive. It's a great one. It's in the course. David does a little tutorial on it. That's the one I think Martha is talking about as well.
Yeah.
But bottom line, here's the thing, like what I always put a disclaimer on it, because it's not about the CRM. It's about just taking the action. So for a lot of people listening right now, that is like way too complex to start with something like that. So I like to say your CRM can be a bunch of Post-its on your wall, or a bunch of index cards, or Michael always talks about who he just puts names in his day planner, you know, on the day you're going to follow up with someone, you just put it in there. So you can take a very basic system. You could do a spreadsheet if that's kind of a place that you like, but it just has to be somewhere that you are actually going to use every day, all the time. It has to be something that you're like reasonably comfortable with. I'm not saying there wouldn't be a learning curve on any of them, but if you sign up for something that's way too complex or cumbersome, like you're saying, Ari, and then you never use it, then you might as well have been using Post-its, right? So the one we like, if you're looking for a robust system, is Pipedrive, and there's some stuff in the course about it, but for caveat for everyone else, I don't want you to just go sign up for Pipedrive.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I've used Pipedrive and I did not like it at all, personally. So I'm using HubSpot now, which I'm kind of liking a lot. But I was just curious.
That's another one. If you look up HubSpot in the group, there's definitely some threads about HubSpot. It's got way more other stuff in it as well, HubSpot, as opposed to just CRM. I think there's a lot to it, so it's not there's no one thing that seems to be right for everyone, I would say.
I'm sure not.
Yeah. Or else one would exist, and then then we wouldn't have this question. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Michael, do you want to do Carla's question here?
Carla, when you are looking at your fee and traveling overseas, are you charging not just for the day, but for the travel time too? I.e. a day there, give the speech, and then a day back for travel. The short answer is, Carla, is yes. Now, how you charge is up to you. You know how you charge or what fee you charge, but absolutely, you want to be compensated for your. Well, let me word it this way. You always want to include the expenses of your travel in your talk, whether you include them in your fee and then charge a higher fee and call it your fee and it includes travel, or there's your fee plus travel. When you're traveling, when you're doing a big travel like overseas, then for sure you want to be compensated for your time as well. Because just think about it. If you have to travel to, in Martha's case, where was it? Israel. What is that? A day there, a day back. There's jet lag. There's recuperation. So you're losing out on other speaking or business coaching, training opportunities, or marketing. So you want to make sure you're covering for that. Is that what you were looking for, Carla? And you're on mute, just FYI.
And that, now that I think about it, is probably partly why David said, international fees start at 15,000. He's not charging, an extra $2,000 for the day there and $2,000 for the day back. It's just his, part of his international fee.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually a great point. He's just including it all. And I see a smile on your face, Carla. So that must have resonated with you.
You're still muted because it's your telephone that's muted. Let me unmute that for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it was definitely, oh boy, would really be undercharging. And I suspect that's the same when you travel even across the country or whatever. You're losing time out of the office prospecting.
Yeah, I was working with a client yesterday, and she wants to be compensated. She does readings for people. This is outside of the group. And she wants to make sure she's compensated if her travel is more than 20 minutes. She doesn't like having to get in her car and travel across town and go to people's houses. And so my answer was, okay, make sure you're compensated for it. And a whole light went off. Like, okay, now we're talking, right? I'll do all that if I'm paid for it. And so you guys, that's the beauty of owning your own business. You can set it up the way you want it. And you don't have to tell the client, you don't have to quote nickel and dime them, right? You can say how you want it, but just make sure you're feeling good about it. The worst thing is, and I've done this, you're on a plane or you're going through in security and you're like, why did I take this gig? I'm getting that's a horrible feeling. Been there, done that.
If I can chime in, especially if I'm going overseas, I'll just give them a lump sum, that's for the whole package, because again, you don't want to nickel and dime them. It's just, there's nothing that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like, what, another expense, and I just, you know what, it's like, hey, you want to bring me over there? I've got my flight, I've got my hotels, I've got this, that, and the other thing, whatever. But I'll tell you what, $15,000 all in. Let's go.
And it sounds like, and it's a bargain. That's perfect, Ari. And David mentions that too in a module. The less detail you give them, the less chances there are that they're reading, well, is this first class or coach? What kind of, is this a 5-star hotel or a star? Right. So don't even give them the opportunity to ask all that. Just make it as simple for them to say yes as possible. And if you think about it, just taking the $15,000 fee, I mean, to go to another country to impart your expertise for a great talk or a training, or, like in the modules David talks about, maybe included in your fee is there's actually 3 parts. You do a half-day training after your talk, or you MC the lunch. All of a sudden they're getting all that, and from an expert in the United States traveling to their country to teach their people. I mean, it's 15,000, we got to remember, or 20 or 25 is nothing, is a pittance to a company that's doing multi-millions of dollars. We like, oh, wow, that's a lot of money, but we got to remember to think in terms of the way they think about money.
Yeah, we are not our own buyer.
Yeah,
ever. Yeah. Sean, were you going to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to say it gets easier because when I got my, I guess if you want to call it a quote unquote first big break, I went back and kicked myself for the times that I missed out before that. But it was a learning lesson. And so, when I would get paid $1,200, $1,500 for a gig, and then I just grew some and asked for 15,000, and I'm never going back. And it's simple.
Yep, that's
it
awesome.
Worked, and it worked well.
Way to go, Sean.
And now I don't have that anxiety, if to a certain degree, for future opportunities. I know what I'm worth, and was not questioned about it at all.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Beautiful.
I mean, the one thing I learned is the farther you travel, the bigger the expert you are.
Yeah.
You're nothing in your hometown.
Who
are you? What are you? You're nothing in your hometown. Go from New York to California, all of a sudden, he's a big expert. He's all the way from New York. He traveled 3,000 miles. Now all of a sudden you're a big expert. You're the same person.
And it's how they're
Literally.
talking about you internally, right? Oh, we're bringing in Ari from New York. Like we need his expertise. It's different than like, oh, he lives, oh, he's on my block. I know his kids go to school with my kids, whatever. So
True.
great discussion today about travel, guys, which really leads me to believe you guys are you're booking gigs. You're talking about this stuff. This is moving for you. So awesome work. We'll see you on Thursday. Remember spfquestion.com. Submit your questions ahead of time. In the meantime, you've got the Facebook group. So we will see you there.
Today's my
Awesome.
last day, so
Bye,
you guys
everybody.
take care.
Is it Sean? Oh my goodness.
hmm
I think that may or may not be true. Let's chat with Morgan. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, let's party. Wait a minute. It's his last day. Let's party. What's going on? Break out
Have
the
a good
drinks.
day, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Where are the cookies?
You guys take care. Thanks.